So I want to talk for a minute about how we get into the record. Okay, this is another very interesting. Throughout time, people have gotten into the record through rigorous spiritual discipline. Okay, things like fasting and praying and studying for extended periods of time to experience a shift in consciousness sufficient to register these very fine vibrations. That's a way to do it. But the way we do it, in the more recent years, people can get into the Akashic Record through hypnosis, through certain kinds of energy work, particularly Reiki is known. There are symbols that enable people to access the Akashic Record. There are a variety of ways to get into the record. The way that I work with, and many others as well, is in the sacred prayer tradition. And in particular, the pathway prayer process, which is the pathway, it's an energetic pathway into the heart of the Akashic Record. Because the record itself has many dimensions. There's very, very mental dimensions, but we are working with the heart of the Akashic Record. And this particular prayer, the saying of the prayer, in the saying of the prayer, two things happen. The first thing that happens is that saying the words out loud, the words are in a rhythmic pattern. And the speaking of the words constructs kind of like a bridge of light. And what happens in the saying of the prayer is that the reader gets moved into a state of consciousness that is sufficient to register the impressions of the record. That's the first part. The second part is, in the saying of the sacred prayer, is that the record of an individual is called forth. So if I were reading you, I would call for your records because I would want to be doing a reading for you. And in doing that, I call up your record. So the two things happen. One is the reader gets moved to a place to be able to actually discern the impressions, and the particular set of records come forward. And when the two meet, there's like a click or a sense of connection, and the passageway is open for the energy and the information to flow back and forth. What it really reminds me of, have you ever seen those bridges that move, movable bridges? And if we're looking from overhead, we see that the bridges are parallel to the side of the river. And when the call comes in, on one side of the bridge, on one side of the river, the bridge starts to move to the center of the river. Simultaneously, a call is put over to the engineer at the other side of the river, and they start to direct that half of the bridge to the center. And sure enough, the two parts of the bridge meet in the center of the river, so traffic of all kinds can move from one side of the river to the other. And that's how the pathway prayer process works.